Llama, you gotta be a fast llama. If you're too slow.
Welcome to the world of in-school suspension. Thank you for accepting this position, as your role in your school is very important. Running an effective ISS room will allow our school to enforce our expectations while providing a deterrent to students who challenge those standards. This presentation is designed to provide you with some basic knowledge in setting up and running an effective ISS room. Let's go over the 4 basic requirements for having an effective ISS room. These 4 guidelines will help ensure the success of your room. Here is the first requirement. Your ISS room must be quiet and under control at all times. The ISS room, while not intended to be a room of torture, does not need to be a fun place either. Therefore, no matter what goes on in the room, the goal should always be to provide a quiet and controlled environment. If that is boring for the students, that is perfectly okay. This will help them to make better choices and stay in class. So again, make sure that the room is quiet and under control at all times from the beginning of the day until the end. They should never be allowed to talk freely with each other. Requirement number 2. While maintaining requirement number 1, that is, keeping the ISS room quiet and under control at all times, we must do everything we can to keep the student in school. Schools are not in a position to be suspending large numbers of students on a daily basis. This is just not a great option. Therefore, while keeping the room quiet and under control, you are also working to ensure that students successfully complete their time in ISS so that they can return to their regular classes. In other words, we can't be too quick to throw them out. Now, don't misunderstand. There are going to be rules and standards that will be enforced in ISS. However, we will provide consequences for offenses that allow for keeping the student in the room and hopefully changing their behavior. So will we never remove a student? Truthfully, it may happen. We will discuss that possibility a bit later. In the meantime, just realize that we are going to do everything we can to keep the student in school. Requirement number 3. While doing number 1, again, keeping the room quiet and under control at all times, teach the student how to be successful. Again, the room must be quiet and under control. There cannot be talking out or talking to each other aloud. However, you're going to learn to use your skills and the relationships you form with students to ensure that once they return to the classroom, they will be successful. The greatest ISS rooms are more than just a holding place. The greatest ISS instructors are masters at developing relationships and using those relationships to help students be successful. Students are in ISS because they have not mastered the skills of how to be successful in the school environment. We are going to use this opportunity to teach them how to do this. More to come about that. Requirement number 4. While doing number 1, again, keeping the room quiet and under control, you are going to put systems in place so that the student is successful upon departure from ISS. In other words, you are going to do everything possible to ensure that the student does not come back. This is going to rely on your relational skills. We will do this by putting some systems in place as well, and more to come about this. So let's review. As the principal, I need for the ISS room to be a place that students do not want to experience. Does that mean I need for you to be an unpleasant and mean person? No, not at all. The best ISS instructors are nice and kind and polite and always under control. They are not mean, sarcastic, or hateful. But they do mean what they say, and they have no problem in fairly enforcing the rules of their room. The ISS room cannot get a reputation for being a fun room, but it also does not have to be an unpleasant and oppressive place. So your challenge will be in finding the correct balance. If you allow students to get away with challenging the rules of ISS, it won't work. At the same time, if you go over to the dark side of being mean and hateful and taking things personally, it won't work either. In my district, we are blessed to have ISS instructors who see their position as a kind of calling, an opportunity to positively affect the lives of students who are experiencing trouble. They relish this opportunity to work with students who need guidance. Therefore, if an ISS instructor becomes hateful and unkind, relationships are destroyed, and any chance of helping that student is lost. So stay on the side of hope. Don't take things personally. These are kids who are having trouble finding their way. They are not bad kids, and it may be you that helps them find their way to success. Let's talk about the best way of setting up your ISS room for success. Now, you may have inherited a room that is already set up the way it is for logistical purposes, and you may not be able to change it. But let's discuss the many different options of successful ISS room setups. Here is the most common ISS setup, where you have carrels built in and designed in such a way that students are facing the inside of the carrel. If your room has been built this way, you may have no option to change it, and that's perfectly okay. This is a very effective design. Let's talk about the advantages of this design where students are in carrels and facing the insides of the carrels. One advantage is that students are not easily distracted. Since they have nothing to look at but the wall, they are not quick to turn around when someone enters the room. They are also not able to see other students. In this design, students are not readily able to visit with each other. And this room has more of the feel of a traditional ISS room, meaning that when students enter, it is obvious that they are not here for fun. However, nothing is perfect, and having students in carrels facing the inside of their carrel does come with some disadvantages. For one thing, it is actually quite difficult to monitor what each student is doing when he or she is facing the inside of the carrel. You really can't see. Therefore, it is not unusual for a student to take this opportunity to deface their area in some way, simply because you can't see what the student is doing. And while this looks like the perfect setup, the truth is, students can easily goof off and not work and even sleep in this setting simply because you are not looking directly at the student. This does not mean to not choose this particular ISS design. It just means that you will have to be hyper aware of what students are doing since you are not able to look into their eyes. Some ISS instructors combat these weaknesses with well-placed mirrors or even cameras. Just be aware of these inherent disadvantages. Let's look at the next type of design for an ISS room, in which the students are in carrels, but the students are facing outward rather than inward. This usually can be done when the carrels are not of the permanent type. Just as with the cubicles facing inward, this design has its advantages and its disadvantages. One advantage of this design is that it is very easy for the teacher to monitor, since the teacher has eye contact with every student. Of course, if you had a situation in which all four walls of your room were lined with students facing outward, this would be impossible. So this setup usually occurs in schools that have lower numbers of ISS students. There is more of a chance that your ISS students will complete their work in this setup, as the perpetual eye contact holds them more accountable. But of course, this setup comes with some challenges. As said, it is impossible to do this with large numbers of students. And in this setup, students are going to be able to see everything that goes on in the room, including when someone enters the room. They are easily distracted in this configuration. Depending on the size of the room, in this setup, students may have the opportunity to see each other, which is not a good thing. This would have to be closely monitored. This setup can work, but it takes a special ISS instructor, one who is strong, respected, no nonsense. An inexperienced ISS instructor could easily fail in this setting. Here is a completely different setup. This one is more of the feel of a traditional classroom. Some schools simply don't have the resources to provide carrels, or the number of students who go to ISS is so great that it requires this type of setup. And some ISS rooms use a variety of different techniques, some with desks, some with carrels, some with an abundance of different types of techniques. Let's talk about the advantages of a traditional classroom setup for ISS. Well, it allows for more students to be in ISS at one time. And quite honestly, that is just sometimes a reality for large middle schools or high schools. Again, keep in mind the importance of what you are doing for your school. You are allowing us to continue school while providing a place for students who have challenged our rules, but without the need to send them home. Sometimes you may be asked to deal with a large number of students. It just comes with the territory. In the classroom setting, the teacher can easily see everything that is going on. Some ISS instructors will have the students facing away from the teacher, and some will have them facing the teacher. This is up to you. Disadvantages of the traditional classroom setting? Well, it's exactly what a classroom teacher faces. First, it's very easy for students to talk to each other or to pass notes to each other. They are just right next to each other. So this takes a very, very strong ISS instructor. The kids have to know you mean business, and the kids have to know that you see everything. And if this setting is not handled correctly, this type of setting can give students the wrong idea about ISS. It looks so much like a regular classroom that it might not serve as an effective deterrent. So which configuration is best for you? You may not have a choice, but just be aware, whatever setup you have, you must be able to see every student every minute. You cannot afford to have any blind spots. As your numbers increase, you must do whatever you have to do to ensure that you can see all of them at all times. And also be very careful about allowing students to be on a computer unsupervised. In some cases, students may need to complete classwork by means of a computer. However, take special care to monitor what that student is doing. The most critical element in a great ISS room is the ISS instructor. Let's talk about what the great ones do. Great ISS instructors are what I call fast llamas. If you don't know what that means, just ask around. These are just some people who are great with kids. There are just some people who are great with kids, and there are other folks who struggle. Fast llamas are nice. They are kind. They are fun to be around. They would never embarrass a student. They would never talk down to a student. They always believe the best about a student, and they never give up on the belief of what that student can ultimately be. But while being nice, kind, and believing, fast llamas also have another quality. You don't mess with them. When the time comes for them to be firm, they do so very effectively. They don't accomplish this by yelling, lecturing, being hateful, or making empty threats. There is just something about them that makes you not want to disappoint them. You sense that they are fully committed to what they believe. Again, they are nice, they are kind, but they mean what they say. So let's examine the specifics of what it takes to be an effective ISS instructor. The effective ISS instructor fully understands and commits to the purpose of the ISS room. They understand the importance of their role. They commit to keeping their room quiet and under control at all times. This is the most important thing. They understand that their role is to provide a place that will help keep students in school. They take advantage of this opportunity that they have. to teach students how to be successful in school and in life. They also, while being firm, are encouragers. They use their position to encourage students to become successful. The effective ISS instructor believes in kids no matter what they have done. Certainly, we are going to hold kids accountable, but we do so in an accepting and a non-judgmental manner. When you work with students or adults who have done less than ideal things, it can be so easy to go to the dark side and to start to assume the worst about people. It is easy to become jaded and to see only the worst in these folks. The effective ISS instructor, while seeing some really bad behavioral choices being made, continues to see the potential for good in every student. Admittedly, this is a tough thing to do. However, in my district, we have the best folks doing this. They understand their role and they maintain wonderful, positive, and hopeful attitudes. The effective ISS instructors have high standards, and they expect that their students will meet them. They understand that children, just like adults, sometimes make bad choices. However, they can constantly see the potential for good in each student. The effective ISS instructor remains kind, encouraging, hopeful, and treats all students with respect and dignity while remaining firm. In other words, I'm nice, I'm kind, I believe in you, but don't mess with me. I mean what I say. The effective ISS instructor does not use hurtful sarcasm or other disparaging language. They stay calm and under control at all times, even during crisis. They are also wise enough to realize that sometimes the best thing to do is to give a student a little space and a little time in which to calm down. In other words, don't pour gasoline on a fire. The effective ISS instructor is consistent, firm, and fair with all students. Never argue with a student. Don't engage in an argument. Refrain from saying things that would set a student off. This does not mean to not correct a student, but when a student has done wrong, don't pile on with unnecessary words or unnecessary lectures. Effective ISS instructors know how to correct students in a firm manner, but they are able to do so in a kind way that does not escalate the situation. Can airline attendants tell you what to do? The answer is, of course, yes, they can. And if you don't, you could end up being arrested and the subject of a very embarrassing YouTube video. But the best airline attendants are the ones who know that they have the ultimate power, but they still tell you things in a very firm but a nice way. Could I get you to put your tray table up? As opposed to, put your tray table up. There is a way to correct both adults and students in a way that makes it much easier to accept. Here are some ways in which to correct students that get the job done but are also more easily accepted. I need you to stop. I need you to stop talking. I need you to stop humming. This is much better than, hey, will you stop that? Now don't get me wrong. There are times when it is totally okay to say, stop. Stop doing that. But learn to do it in a nicer way. Please turn around. Please stop talking. Please focus on your work. Mary, can I get you to face the front? Joy, can I get you to spit out your gum? Now these next ones are good ones to use when you're having a more private conversation with students. Even when you're being very direct in speaking with a student privately, these words let the student know that you believe in them. John, you're better than this. This is not who you are. This is not the person I know you to be. I know you can do this. I know you can be successful. You can do it. Show me. You can stay out of ISS. I know you can. I believe in you. Show me. The effective ISS instructor is 100% committed to the students under his or her care. There is nothing else on the instructor's mind. There is nothing distracting the instructor from the job at hand. The instructor is all in. The students know that they are being watched at all times. The ISS instructor is in a unique position to help students in need of learning how to be successful, both in school and in life. Oftentimes, you're going to find that you may come to know more about these students than any other adult in the school. Also, be aware of this possibility. Sometimes teachers may become resentful of the relationship that you have with students who have been in ISS. They may see you between class periods interacting in a positive way with these former ISS students, and it can lead to the belief that your ISS room is not enough of a deterrent. That is why it is so important to run a tight ship, because you need for teachers to be on your side. But the reality is that you're going to have an opportunity to establish a very important relationship with these students. You may become the teacher that they actually turn to for encouragement. So while keeping a tight ship, meaning a quiet, orderly, and yes, somewhat boring ISS room, it is important for you to develop a relationship with these students. Many ISS instructors establish these relationships outside of the ISS environment. Attending games, events, assemblies, or simply greeting students during passing periods is one way to do this. Not only are you establishing relationships with potential ISS students, but you are also submitting yourself into the overall culture of the school. Some ISS instructors do lunch duty or other kinds of duties. This is a great way to get to interact with students. And by the way, realize that as an ISS instructor, sometimes you are going to be asked to do other things for the school. This is true of everyone who works in your school. You might need to cover a class for someone. Instead of resenting these type of requests, see your role as one of a servant. You are part of the overall school team. Now don't forget guideline number 1. Your ISS room must be quiet and under control at all times. It does not need to turn into some giant group therapy kind of session or something. It does need to be a deterrent that is boring enough that kids don't want to be there. However, if wisely done, you can use this time to get to know your students. Watch this video of one of the world's best ISS instructors and see how she established relationships with her students.
Good job. Thank you so much for filling out the ISS packet. You did a good job and we went over a lot of things. So the last question. So what do you think needs to happen to make it right?
Really, I just need to show up and I need to make sure that I'm here when I need to be, or else the problem's just going to keep reoccurring.
That's good. That's good. So that means you heard what I said to you. That's really good. So also I wanted to go over this little 2-minute relationship building card. That's why you filled this out. Thank you for filling this out for me because I want to get to know you, and if I can help you in any way, that's what I'm here for. Card. Okay. So I see you like sports. That's good. So basketball is your favorite?
Yes, I love basketball.
I like basketball too.
Do you really?
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I used to play like point guard in school.
Were you good?
I was good. I think I was good. I was pretty fast. So that was pretty good. And you like boxing as well.
Yes, that right there is my favorite because that's what I actually participated in.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's cool. Hey, that's awesome. So thank you for sharing this with me. I want to kind of remember that, when I'm walking around the hallways, because hopefully you won't come back to ISS, because especially for this reason and everything. So we're going to get things worked out.
This time is better because the first time when I wrote it, I didn't give you too much insight on who I was or anything.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get to when I came, you're like, have you been here before? And now you know me.
I know, yeah. that worked out. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing. So have a good one. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
If skillfully done, you can use things that happen in ISS as opportunities for learning success. Now, this must be done in skillful ways. When a student is angry, that is not a teachable time. However, there are ways in which you can help students practice success. For example, a student blurts out. You can kindly say, "You need to remember to raise your hand." If a student does not respond correctly to a teacher's direction, when the student is in the right mood for this, you can teach the student. Hey, when someone in charge corrects you, you can say okay, or yes ma'am, or yes sir, or simply nod your head. We all learn to do this with our bosses. It shows respect and helps you keep your job. Again, this must be skillfully done. Pick your spots carefully. It is very important that you have an effective intake procedure for when students enter your ISS room. Since you have other students under your care, you need a procedure that is very quick, informative, and effective for bringing in a new student. This paper is an example of a simple intake sheet. As you can see, it just asks for the student's name and grade level. It spells out the rules of ISS. Some ISS instructors will actually have students copy the rules to ensure that the students know what the rules are. This sheet also explains an ISS management plan with consequences, which we will discuss in a few slides. It is very important that you create your own ISS intake packet that fits your style. Have several of these run off and ready for use. I have included a sample ISS packet, and let's look at what you may want to include on the packet. For sure, name, grade, schedule, but as you saw in the video, tell me some things about you, your favorite subject, your hardest subject. What are your goals? How can I be of help to you? What do you want to be when you grow up? Do you have a job? What are some barriers that you're facing? And what are you good at doing? Now, this last question is up to you, and you can ask your assistant principal about this. Sometimes you're going to be told why the student is in ISS, and sometimes you may not. Sometimes it's confidential. You can ask them sometimes, but you need to discuss this with your superiors before you put this on here. Sometimes you're only asking them from the standpoint of wanting to know so that you can help them. But this is not information that you need to share with anyone else. Again, make this intake packet your own. When a student enters ISS, the student may be upset. If so, allow for a little cool-off time. As soon as possible, get the student started completing your ISS input packet and beginning the work that is provided. It may happen that teachers have not yet sent any work to you. If that is the case, it is a good idea to have some extra work always handy. I have included a few ISS packets that can be used while waiting for their work to arrive. Get them started doing something as soon as possible. It is a good idea to collect some interesting books and magazines to keep on hand. This way, if a student finishes work or does not have any work, there's always something for the student to be doing. Ask your school librarian for ideas. Now, let's talk about getting work from the teachers. Usually, when a student is placed in ISS, the assistant principal who assigned the student will contact all of the student's teachers to let the teachers know that the student is being placed in ISS for the time period and when it starts and ends. The teachers will begin putting assignments together and sending them to you or putting them inside your box. You will then be able to organize the student's work and give it to the student to do. Okay, that scenario is in a perfect world, but the perfect world doesn't exist. And here are some realities that you will face and need to come to grips with. Teachers are extremely busy. They have 25 or more students in each class, and they are consumed with preparing for each class and doing a good job. Therefore, in a perfect world, teachers would immediately stop whatever they were doing, prepare work, and get it sent to you right then. However, that is just not always the case. The classroom in a school is the most important place. That is where the learning is taking place, and the classroom is the most protected place in the school. And teachers are doing the very best that they can. So for you to be successful in your job, you are going to need to establish and maintain a good relationship with every teacher. Avoid criticizing a teacher for not getting work to you on time. It's simply not your place to do that. You don't understand completely what these folks face. Granted, they don't understand what you face either. But you need to be on good terms with every teacher in the building so that you can work as a team in order to help students be successful. As previously stated, it helps to have some packets of work ready in case the real work does not show up. But don't expect students to just jump right in and start doing these willingly. But it at least gives you the chance to tell them, do you want to do a packet of work, or do you want to read a book while we're waiting for your work to arrive? This is also why a little longer intake packet is very effective. So what do you do if the work never comes? This is when you send a nice email to the teacher. However, be aware, great teachers are not sitting around checking their emails while they're teaching. So it may be a while before this is seen. And here's an example of the kind of email that you could send to a teacher specific to a specific student. Therefore, the best thing you can do is to sit down with your assistant principals and discuss the best plan for how you will get work. These folks will be very important in helping you get the work you need. You also need to develop and maintain a close working relationship with your assistant principals. You are going to need them. It is very important that you have a system in place in which you can keep all students' work organized. I recommend creating a folder for each student for each day that they are in ISS. Here is a sheet that you can use for each student, or make your own. Record the assignments and mark them off as they are completed. Be sure to include this sheet with all of the completed assignments in the work folder. At the end of the day, return the completed work to the teachers by either handing it to them or putting it in the teacher's box. It helps to include an attached note when giving work back to the teacher. Now at this point, let's discuss this scenario. What if the student refuses to work? One thing you will quickly discover is that it is impossible to make someone work. Here's what you need to do on this. Sit down with your assistant principals and discuss what they want to do if a student refuses to do the work. In some cases, students will not be permitted to leave ISS unless they have finished. However, in other cases, this simply is not feasible. Each school has a different culture when it comes to this, and you need to carry out the wishes of your leaders. Should students complete the work? Of course they should. However, every situation is different. Now let's talk about something very important, which is your ISS classroom management system. What is a classroom management system and what is an ISS management system? This is kind of a backup system to be used if a student is simply refusing to follow your rules. Now, in the old days, a management system consisted of this. If, after lots and lots of discussions and other efforts and being corrected, if a student simply would not follow the rules, the student's name was taken. If the student continued to not follow the rules, the student received a check mark. If they kept on not following, they got another check mark. Once they got 3 check marks, they were sent to the office. Essentially, this is what a management system is, and this is the most old-fashioned of classroom management systems. Nowadays, classroom management systems come in all forms, and let's discuss what would possibly be best for you. But before we do, we need to discuss something that we call automatics. You'll need to discuss these with your assistant principal. But here's what I mean by an automatic, and this one is obvious. If, and we hope it never happens, if 2 students were to get into a fight into your room, or if one student was threatening another, or physically assaulting another one. Obviously, this is when you need to immediately call the office and have that student removed. So let's discuss this. How are you going to contact the office? And each of you may find that your situation is different. This is where you need to sit down with the assistant principals and talk and say, if we get into a situation where I need to instantly contact you, how do you want me to do it? Email may not prove to be the most effective way because there may be a situation sometimes in which you need an adult instantly. Now, some schools will allow you to have a walkie-talkie. However, many schools won't, and it's for confidentiality purposes. They have their own reasons. If you have a walkie-talkie that connects you with the front office, that is obviously the best way that you can get in contact with them. There may be other ways that you can explore, and we're going to continually look for ways that we can help you out in this regard. But this is definitely something you need to discuss with your assistant principal. How do I contact you when I need you? Now let's talk about classroom management systems and an ISS management system. Because quite honestly, some ISS instructors are so good that they don't need one. However, the rest of us sometimes do. And the way I'm going to explain the need for a classroom management system is to explain basically the best classroom management system that's ever been created for a specific purpose, and that is the yellow and the pink card in soccer. Now here's what makes the yellow and pink card so effective. You could go anywhere in the world. You could go to Brazil, and if you saw some young kids playing soccer on concrete, and if you showed those kids a yellow card, they would know exactly what you're talking about. You could do the same thing in Sweden, in Russia, in anywhere in America, in Mexico. It's a universal symbol that everyone understands. But I do want you to realize that soccer did not always have the yellow and the red card. And I want you to imagine what it was like to be a referee when you were refereeing soccer and you did not have that option of a yellow and a red card. You basically only had two choices. You could warn them, or kick them out. And those are not really good choices. And this is exactly what happens to a classroom teacher or to an ISS instructor when they don't have some form of a backup plan that the office understands. So let's go back to soccer, before the red and the yellow card, and let's talk about what actually happened back in those days. I'll take you back to an actual game, the 1966 World Cup game between England and Argentina, during which there was a German referee. That's 3 different languages right there, and they did not have the use of the yellow or red card. Now, during this infamous game, the Argentinian players seemed to get a little bit out of control. Now, to hear it to this day, there's different sides to this story, but I'm just going to tell you what happened. There were a lot of physical attacks going on during this game, and primarily coming from the Argentinians toward the English players. The German referee was doing exactly what a good teacher or a good ISS instructor was, running around the field saying a lot, no, 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 stop, stop, stop. But the Argentinians simply wouldn't stop. And if you watch the replays of the game, someone is about to get their leg broken from the way that they were attacking the English players. The German referee had nothing more to be able to do about it other than to warn them. And that's the situation I don't want you to get in an ISS, where you're just warning with nothing to back you up. Inevitably, in that game, what happened was one Argentinian player was fouling so egregiously that the German referee decided to send the player off. But there wasn't even a universally understood way of sending a player off. And so the Argentinian player refused to leave. They had to close the game down for 15 minutes and get security involved. All of this because they didn't have a red and yellow universally understood system. Once they put the system in place, now soccer games can be easily managed by referees. And I want you to realize something. When you watch an outstanding soccer referee, they don't use yellow cards, and they don't reach for them quickly. They use their skills, their relational skills. They oftentimes talk to players individually. They'll give out small warnings. They'll encourage players. But if a player continues and simply won't stop, then the referee reaches for the yellow card. And everyone understands what it means. If that player does it again, the player is going to be removed. And if the player is removed, we don't replace the player. That team's going to play with 10 players, and it's going to affect the outcome of the game. And that player is going to be suspended for the next 2 games and ultimately fined. Everyone understands the yellow and the red card. So when would you use a classroom management system? Again, I want to tell you, many of the greatest ISS instructors don't use one, and they do well. But they possess incredible skills. So if you do need to use one, when would you use it? To help explain this, I'm going to use my golden doodle, Archie. Archie's kind of a middle school dog. So I want to show you when I would use a card or whatever I'm using with Archie and when I wouldn't use it. Well, one time Archie jumped up on a chair, and that's not okay in my house, but it wasn't really a big deal. It's what I call a whoops. He wasn't planning anything bad. It was just kind of whoops. It was just kind of like a student who maybe just talked for a second. And I could fix it easily by just saying, Archie, please get off the chair. And he did. Now, maybe I should have used a colored card, but I really didn't need to. You don't have to use a classroom management system. Oftentimes you can just correct a kid by saying, I need you to stop. I need you to stop humming. I need you to stop doing this. Thank you. Here's another example. One time Archie jumped up on the couch and took a nap. You can see him on his back right there. But quite honestly, in the dog world, that was more of a whoops. All I had to do was say, hey Archie, wake up. Get off the couch. He didn't really need a card or a color. You could give him one. It would be completely up to you. In this case, I didn't think it was necessary. However, one time Archie jumped up on the kitchen counter and got a roll of paper towels, and he started chewing on it, and when my wife went near him to get it from him, he growled at her. Hey, you know what? That's not a whoops. At that point, I need to use whatever management system I'm going to use with my dog. So here's an example of a management system for ISS. While in ISS, the student begins on the color green. Failure to follow the rules leads to color changes with the consequences listed. Every time when a new student comes in on this system, you would start them on green. They could have a green card at the back of their carrel. They could have a green card outside of their carrel. Or you could just simply keep this from your desk and act like a soccer referee and just take notes about it on their intake sheet. Now, again, you don't need to use these unless you need to use these. If it's just a small correction, then don't use these. These are for more serious things, but there are going to be times when a student simply won't stop. And if a student simply refuses to comply, this is when you would apply a yellow card. You could either go over and change the card to yellow in the carrel, you could change it outside of the carrel, or you could simply show the card to the student and say, you're receiving a yellow card, I need you to stop. You really don't need a lot of words with it. Now at this point, you have a choice to make, and it's completely up to you. In soccer, once a player receives a yellow card, the player cannot get rid of that yellow card. However, in your ISS room, you could offer the student an opportunity to get off of yellow and to get back on green. The way to do this would be to simply say, hey Joey, I'm watching you for the next few minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. If you'll change your behavior, I'll put you back on green. Now, do you offer this opportunity? It is completely up to you. Some people do, some people don't. There's no right or wrong answer to this. It's up to you. Let's say that a student goes to yellow and the student simply refuses to stop. In that case, you would go to an orange card. This would be the student's second offense. If a student is on orange, they are getting really, really close to the next step happening. And you don't want that to happen. Your words with the student are, come on, look, we only have an hour left in ISS, and you and I both know that you can make it. Come on, just do what you're supposed to do. However, if a student is on orange and they refuse to stop, then you could administer a red. At this point on the red, this is where you would call for an assistant principal or a dean or whoever's in charge. The dean or the assistant principal would take the student out and probably talk to them. Now, this is where this can be different for different schools. At this point, they may call home and remove the student. Or the student may come back to you knowing that the very next offense would result in the student being removed from your room. This is something you need to discuss in detail with your assistant principals so that you're all on the same page. But this is an example of a student management system. Do you need one of these? If you're inexperienced, yes, you do. Once you become experienced enough without it, you're okay. Now, when you don't have one of these, do get ready for this problem to occur. When a student gets to the point that you remove them, they're going to go down and they're going to say that you didn't warn them at all. And even though the assistant principal will inevitably believe you over the student, the fact that the student was shown these colors and this was documented kind of takes away that chance for the student to claim that. Here's an example of an ISS room with a color system that's in place, and you can see that the teacher's using a magnet and the yellow card is outside of the carrel. Again, there are a number of ways in which you could use this. All right, let's talk about the most important thing, which is once they get out of ISS, let's keep them out. This is going to be done in a relational way. The greatest ISS instructors are an integral part of their school. And once that student is out of ISS, you'll see that ISS instructor interacting with those students in the hall, checking up on those students, checking up to see how that student is doing, constantly encouraging that student and giving a friendly warning, don't you dare come back to ISS. Now here's another way to accomplish this, and different ISS instructors do this in different ways. When a student is about to leave ISS, you could do what we call an informal contract with the ISS student. Now this could be up to them. They may not want to participate in this. Generally, I will go into an ISS room and say, hey, who's getting out today? Do you want to do a contract with us? And this is an example of this kind of contract. Now, the student and I would sit down and I would say to the student, hey, what can I do to keep you from coming back to ISS or getting suspended from school or going back to DAEP? I want to do anything I can. How long do you think that you can stay out of those places? Now, I've attached a calendar, a school calendar to this. And sometimes, depending on the student, and you do this differently for different students, but I will say to the student, hey, do you think you could stay out of here for 20 days, 15 days, a month? And we agree on a time period. And we mark it on the calendar. Put the first day on there and the last day on there. And write it on this sheet. And let's both sign off on it. And here's what I'm saying to the student. If you can stay out of here for the next 20 school days, come back and see me at the end of 20 days. And you know what? I'll have a small prize for you. Now, the small prize could be a $5 Sonic gift card or a candy bar or something like this. And ISS instructors, I don't want you going out spending your own money on this. So visit with your assistant principal about this, or visit with someone who can fund you this way. Now, it does not need to be a large prize. Here is the whole point of this exercise. This exercise is a way for you to establish an encouraging relationship with that student. Because when you see that student in the hall, you're checking up on them. Hey, it's been 11 days. You only need 9 more. You going to make it? And for some of these students, to have someone like you looking out for them, encouraging them, that may be the most important thing in their lives. If a student makes it, celebrate the heck out of that. Give the student the prize, and if you want to, make the contract for a longer period of time. If the student doesn't make it, start a new contract. But this is a way for you, with your former ISS students, to get your foot into that door of a relationship with that student. Does it work with all students, and does it work every time? Of course not. But if it works with one, it's worth it. Thank you so much for taking on this role as an ISS instructor. And we want you to be successful, and we want you to find out just how much you mean to our school. Thank you.
Llama, you gotta be a fast llama.